Hey everyone, hi, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be discussing Damien by Hermann Hesse with Fraser Simon of Fraser Simon Springboard Thought. So hi Fraser.
Hello.
Hello.
The dramatic reveal.
The dramatic reveal.
Huzzah.
I loved it. So we both heard about Damien on Jennifer Brooks's channel, and she inspired both of us to pick it up. And so far, Damien is about the coming of age story of Emile Sinclair and the safety, probably, this is the best way to probably break down Emile Sinclair. He feels quite safe and good in his parents' household with his sisters. And then the outside world is giving him a lot of temptation, which is allowing him to confront some internal struggles and some philosophy and some theology. And so that's what essentially is going on at the beginning of the story, in case you didn't know anything about it. So a little bit philosophical, a bit of a coming of age story, and we're going to discuss that today. Okay, so we are here today, right, to talk about Damien by, what was it? Hermann Hesse?
Yep.
Is that right? Yeah.
Totally.
Okay, and we read the first 3 chapters, right?
Yep.
Okay, so in the first 3 chapters, what kind of sense are you getting from the book?
I'm getting the sense that it's going to be a coming of age story that is centered on probably morality. And I think like the adolescence is like a device in order to confront moralism and theology and some like deeply philosophical things, which I think is really interesting, especially for a coming of age story where they're just like usually tackling like I hit puberty. You know, this is much more intense, I think. Yeah,
I agree. I had a moment, I think it was in chapter 3, at the beginning of chapter 3, that I felt like this is a deconstruction of a coming of age novel. In that there is a lot of ponderings about the old childish ways and like the new way that our character, Emile Sinclair, right? Is that right? Mm-hmm. Emile Sinclair is now feeling. And so, but instead of it being just the process, it is like the psychology or the thoughts of our main character being very aware of the coming of age, like transformation that he's having, while also recanting the pieces of his life that I guess attributed to his coming of age.
Yeah, it has a narrative device that I love for coming of age, which is we're not in the mindset of an actual adolescent child. We're in the future looking at our past. And so we have better, I mean, not to be a jerk, but diction, vocabulary, articulation of things. You know, it's like a refined process instead of like stream of consciousness. Like I jumped over the field and it was my favorite. Not to be depletive of normal coming of age stuff. But yeah,
I agree that there is I do prefer coming of age stories that have a more mature outlook, and that there is a sense that they're looking back and there is an awareness that was childhood that was happening, and that their processing of those events was very childish. And then there's usually like the transformation and then the afterwards, and being able to look back at childhood with rose-colored glasses, or the fact that you were a child experiencing those things.
Yeah,
that's right. But like I'm also like you in that I don't like, when I'm reading a coming of age story, I don't want them to sound little. Okay. All right. My next question is, did you find anything surprising about the read? I know you go into a lot of reads blind, but like, did you find anything that surprised you?
Yeah, I think so. There is, it seems like that's setting up a, like I was saying, theological conflict to come. But interestingly, the good comes from his like innate sense of self and not an opposing character. So there's 2 characters now that are sort of bad, is what I would call them, you know, like bad influences anyway. That's what the parents would say. One is sort of like extorting him for money, and then the other one is moral relativism incarnate or something, who tries to apply these like theories to absolutely everything going on, and comes off to me very like moralistic, like relativistic kind of person where it's like, what is right, what is wrong, but also considers like horrible things as viable tracks of thought to be pursued, basically, which make our main character interrogate those things as well. So it's just like a lot more, I guess, nuanced than I was expecting. And I was expecting sort of like the good angel, bad angel friends, like, listen to me, I'm you should do something good. And then the other guy's like, no, it feels good to be bad. Let's go do these things, and it's not like that at all. So yeah.
Right.
How about you? Were you surprised?
Yeah, I was quite surprised because immediately I didn't realize that it was a coming of age story.
Oh.
So as I sort of dove in and he's talking about his coming of age, while he's telling the story of his coming of age, it's like he's analyzing it and going through it as he's telling the reader what's happening and the effects of what happened. So I didn't expect that, and I love coming of age stories, so that surprised me. And then the other thing was that I knew that this book had a lot to do with philosophy, but I didn't realize how accessible the writing and the concepts are. They're not so cerebral that they're like over your head. Whereas sometimes when I get into works of philosophy or those that are labeled as philosophy, I always sort of become a bit nervous or apprehensive to wondering if something is going to be a little bit too detailed. And so since it's accessible, then
I'm up to my level literature.
Yeah, it's like, look, I want you to be here right there with me. And since it's accessible, I'm noticing that there's a lot of dichotomous themes. And so there's like both, but then each theme has a nuance. So it's like good versus evil, but the evil, there seems to be like a pure evil and then sort of like a contorted evil, but they're both like playing with this idea of evil, but then there's still a side where there's good. So for example, Emil thinks his parents and his family are the amalgamation of good. And then the two like devilish characters are representing Damien. Two different kinds of evil, and Damien is
yeah. So I have a question for you. Do you think this is going to a supernatural place?
I don't know, but I don't think so. I think maybe metaphorically it'll go to a supernatural place, because I feel like I have an idea of what Damien is, but it feels as if it's there in his name. And so I think if it goes there, it'll be like in a subversive way, rather than overtly like something spiritual coming out of nowhere, or like fantasy bombarding the book in a way that is too surprising, I suppose.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I hope that you're correct, because like yeah, I was getting definite like orphan vibes or whatever, like scary kid orphan sociopathic vibes from Max Demian. But yeah, then it kind of sort of got more philosophical and about interrogating sort of socialized concepts for stuff, and him being just like, I want to figure stuff out for myself, basically. And it turned into sort of like a mentalist, basically, like a territory, right, where he was just like, I just apply my brain and I get better results than you, basically, and I could teach that to you if that's possible, or something, rather than like, I am a haunted child coming from your house. Because that's kind of the vibes I got initially, because he was like, I'm interested in your house and your crest. Also, I don't believe in good and evil and, critiquing the Bible and stuff. And I'm like, oh, this guy, maybe he's a ghost.
Well, actually, I was thinking that Damien is some sort of devil or demon, because of the play on the word Damien. But also he says something like, if you pay attention, right? If you pay attention enough, then you will know more about the person than they even know themselves. And so thus you can kind of surprise people. So on the one hand, it's like, yes, he does seem like he's a bit of a demon, but then there's like an explanation to his demonicness. And then you're kind of on this fence as a reader of wondering if he is actually some sort of demon or if he's a living being that just is struggling with philosophy and looking at the world differently. So there is a question for me of like, what is Damien? Who is Damien, right?
I thought it was interesting too that the only person, or it's an inference by our protagonist, but he thought that the only person Damien couldn't analyze was his mother, who was like inscrutable and unknowable and stuff. So I wonder if that's an introduction of a new theme that's going to be gone into in the future or what, or if it's trying to just communicate that like he's not 100% perfect at this mentalist gift thing or whatever.
Oh, like his mother is going to be the one thing that he is unknowable to him, which is strange because that is connecting with another book that I read, the Eddie Gain book. But we don't have to go into that, but it is a serial killer that was very influenced by his mom. And so I'm hoping that Damien doesn't turn out to be a serial killer.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
So I'm getting the vibe that he's probably not a serial killer, but I feel like the direction is definitely open.
Yeah. I think
it could be.
There's definitely like an initial dislike of him because of his transgressions into like not conforming to like widespread thought on a specific issue, usually theological. Absolutely. So it makes sense, and you would think it would be navigating to a point of subversion, but I guess we don't know. We'll see.
We'll see. Interruptions ensue. Okay, so with Damien moving forward, do you think that there's a theme that you're going to be excited for them to explore, or for Hesse to explore? Is there like one theme that you're excited above the others to dive into?
I think I'm excited to see the direct interrogation of what sort of man he's wanting to become specifically. And it's kind of interesting that that's happening by way of not his parents, because I think in a typical narrative, we would be getting that from the parents. Like the father would be like, what kind of man do you want to be? And it'd probably be the exact opposite of what the dad is, basically, right? Not to put too fine a point on it, I guess, but instead it's like the communication that through life experience and through him meeting random people and going through school, all of it is sort of more of a test than he was expecting it to be. Like he seems very like shook, basically, that this is like shaping him, and he's attuned to that fact. Like it's a heavy weighted moment in his life, which ostensibly that's why he's writing about it right now. But yeah, I just like that a lot, because usually it is got that dichotomy between the parents shaping predominantly the child, and then sort of outside influences, but instead they're very much in the background in this piece. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I also think I mean, like, going off of what you're saying, I'm wondering where it's going to go with Damien and like who this Damien kid is, and then ultimately the impression that this experience with Damien as this like rule breaker, as this like deviant. I wonder how that is going to shape our protagonist eventually, and like, which, like, I forget that his name is Emile Sinclair, like, because it's not said a lot, whereas like we're getting this development of thought about somebody else rather than about the actual protagonist. And so I'm wondering how he's going to bring it back to Emile Sinclair, and also where Damien will end up being in the narrative, I suppose.
Yeah, that's true. The narrative mentions the full name, like Max Damien, far more than the actual protagonist, which is interesting. And I wonder if it's almost feels like folkloric to me in a way, or at least it began that way. So I wonder if it is something codified in like the German language folklore or something like that. But I like that it sort of shifted into, like you were saying, a much more realistic thing and shied away more from that. Yeah.
Yeah, because what he's doing is like he's sharing an experience and then speaking or developing how that experience was, like how he felt during that experience and the way that what he took away from it in some ways. So it's like he's being very critical about his own growing up, but as he's telling you about his growing up. Actually, that was one thing that I was curious about. I like, since translations are a thing on booktube. I mean, so who is yours translated by? I think we have the same translator.
Michael Roloff and Michael LEBECK.
Yes, that is mine as well. But I don't know much about German translations or about this, if there are many versions of Damien or if this is sort of the standard English version, which I'm guessing there is a standard English version because it said that like 30 million copies of these have been sold. And so there must be like some sort of, standardization, I suppose. So I haven't heard anything about different translators. Have you?
No, I haven't. And when I looked it up, it did seem like you were saying standardized. I didn't see like a whole bunch of different discussions. And I think I did sort of Google like best translation of Damien, and it's like there wasn't 12 Reddit threads of people being like, first of all, how dare you? And then going into it. So I'm guessing this is just the definitive thing that we're consuming.
Standard.
Yeah.
The standard English fare for English readers is this translation, and that is it. There's no other interpretations of this work.
What do you think about the pacing, by the way? Because we're like halfway, right? At like 58 pages for mine and 68 for you.
Yeah, I have 171 pages, so it's about a third, I think, for me at least.
Yeah, a third. Oh, mine looks a little bit more than that, but yeah. But what do you think about the pacing? Because it for me, I'm finding it like extremely readable, and the flow is like excellent, so I just fly through it. But then it's also like interesting. I wonder if he's going to subvert like normal plotting essentially, because it doesn't seem like that much has happened yet, and yet at a traditional arc we would be reaching the climax like now. Basically,
right. Yeah, I understand. I feel like because of the way that this book feels a bit more meditative, meaning that it maybe will lack a strong story arc, but it will explore different ideas. And so I'm wondering if like the exploration of ideas is going to take hold over a normal or conventional story arc. So I don't know. I like the pacing though, because I feel as if like we met our character, we have an understanding about how his family functions, and then we're meeting like the outside world and those influences, and that's how the book was structured. And so, yeah, you're seeing why the character is taking those outside influences in the way that he does because of how he grew up. But again, that's how the book is set up to take you along. And I wouldn't be surprised, again, if there isn't like a huge climax. But if there is, then that would be really wonderful, Like, yeah. If we get it, then it's like Damien is revealed, like who he is, and this is who Emile becomes at the end of his life, and that would be really satisfying. But I have a skepticism as to whether that's going to actually happen.
Yeah, and what I really like about these, especially coupled with a coming of age story, is the notion of people don't really know who they are until they have the opportunity to transgress upon it, and then they like have to make that internal decision. I really like that device in like all coming of age stories. Anytime it ever happens, I'm just like, oh yeah, this is the good stuff, because it's terrifying.
The moment that you get to choose in order to make, it's like the defining moment, right?
Yeah,
you don't know what they're going to choose.
Yeah, because so even in real life, it kind of feels like that, where you're kind of like, I have these solid opinions about who I am. This is what I would do in this situation. And then when it's confronted, you don't actually know until you choose and do the thing. And yeah, I just like that in the boyhood or coming of age context rather than, you know, in movies and stuff when they're like, I thought I would save that person's life, but I never did, you know. I'm just like, yeah, this is more interesting because it's like formative and propulsive to me rather than that more Hollywood type of framing.
Yeah, it's definitely more down to earth and relatable, and it is providing situations that are simple enough to sort of map your own experience on top of, and then take away like the way that he's exploring his sort of defining experiences when he's in 5th grade. By the way, I was like, you're in 5th grade. I'm like, wow, you are very smart 5th grader. But and then like, you know, he's letting himself, or he's looking back, letting himself go through those motions, but also understanding the damage that the choices made on him, I suppose. Which is, yeah, it's a good one. I'm enjoying it. It's a good book so far.
Yeah, and we were talking about how it was, to me anyway, it feels fairly old. Like it's giving me like rural, like pastoral country vibes, sort of, to me. But it looks like it was published in 1925 initially, so that kind of makes sense then, because we were talking about how it didn't have like a sense of time really, like when it was written,
right?
And so I was wondering, when you initially started reading it, did it feel like a modern book in your head when you were picturing it? Yeah. And then did you have to adjust it like as things went on?
No,
or is it still modern? Yeah.
It's still modern. It's like taking place in the 1990s for me in my mind.
Oh, in me, it's like Oliver Twist. Like everyone's got like olden clothes and it's pastoral. Maybe,
no.
Yeah.
For me, they're wearing like uniforms, like everyone's wearing uniforms, and it's just before, in my mind, it's just before the age of technology, like 1990s setting, but nobody has phones yet, you know? So that's what I'm getting. And so, you know, but I also know that Damien was an inspiration to a K-pop band. So I think the way that I'm constructing it has to do with the fact that I know that a K-pop band really liked it. So all of my characters are all just very muddled and it feels like really modern. But I also knew it was published in the modern era because I'm reading this for May of the Moderns.
Right. It's not a Victorian novel. As we sometimes get confused by, and by we, I mean me. I just name out random people. I'm like, sounds like a Victorian. Like
I know you do. And I have to be like, well, I'm glad you think it's Victorian, Fraser.
I'm enjoying the fact that you read the new Victorian novel, A House of Mirth. Thanks for having me on the channel.
Yeah, it was great having you. What are we going to read for next time?
Next time we'll read the next 2 chapters, and the following will be the last chapters of the book.
The last section, yeah. All right. So the homework is set. Read the next 2 chapters, and we're going to discuss it. And yeah, I guess that's it from us, right?
I think so.
All right. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for having me on your channel, Shelly.
Stop! Don't do it. Wait, the pressure's on. Stop.